Today, we're going to dig into a really fascinating piece of economic history, a bold experiment from the 1980s. It's about a pretty wild idea that countries tried to fix their totally broken economies by auctioning off their own currency.
So let me ask you something. What if the money in your wallet had two completely different prices? Like an official price set by the government, but on the street, it was worth something totally different. That's the wild, kind of mind-bending problem we're kicking things off with.
And for a lot of developing countries back in the 80s, this wasn't some hypothetical question. It was their reality. The official value of their money? Yeah, it was pretty much pure fiction. And it was causing this just massive economic crisis. Okay, so here's the root of the problem, right? You've got a government that fixes its exchange rate, but they set it way too high. And that just sets off this chain reaction of bad stuff. The currency is officially worth way more than it actually is in the real world. This leads to a constant crisis, huge mess-ups in the economy, shortages of stuff people actually need, and then, yep, you guessed it, these huge black markets pop up where everyone trades at the real price.
And this chart, man, it just perfectly shows you how big this problem was. Take a look at Ghana back in '86. Officially, $1 got you 90 cedis, okay. But you go out on the street to the parallel market, and that same dollar gets you 170 cedis. That's almost double. I mean, that gap tells you everything you need to know. The official system was completely disconnected from reality.
So, the old system is obviously a disaster. What do? Well, someone came up with this pretty radical idea. Instead of having some bureaucrat in an office just make up a price for money, what if you let the market figure it out? And how? Through an auction.
And a foreign exchange auction is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. The central bank has a limited stash of, say, US dollars, which everyone needs. So they put them up for sale, and whoever bids the highest gets them. It's really like an art auction, but instead of a painting, businesses are fighting for the dollars they desperately need to import goods and, well, just stay in business. You have to understand this was a huge change. Before, it was all about who you knew. Government officials would just decide who gets the precious dollars. It was slow, messy, and you can bet favoritism was a huge part of it. The whole point of the auction was to blow that up, make it transparent, make it efficient, make it fair. A place where the highest bid wins, not the person with the best connections.
Okay, so let's get into the mechanics here. How do you actually pull this off? How do you run an auction for a country's money? Well, it mostly boiled down to two different ways you could do the bidding.
And this is where it gets really interesting because the type of auction you choose matters a lot. On one hand, you have the discriminative auction. Pretty straightforward, you win, you pay what you bid. Simple. But then there's the uniform price auction. Here, all the winners pay the exact same price, the price of the lowest winning bid. Now that might sound like a tiny detail, but trust me, it completely changed how people bid and how the whole market worked.
So that's the big question, right? Which one is better? Do you go with the pay-what-you-bid system to get people to bid their true value, or does the everyone pays the same system create a more stable, less chaotic market? This was the puzzle these countries were trying to solve.
And this is where things get complicated. Because this beautiful, elegant theory of a perfect market auction, it was about to run face first into the messy, unpredictable real world.
I mean, the promise was so seductive, right? On paper, this was it. This was the silver bullet, a totally transparent, super efficient system that would finally let the market find the real exchange rate and fix everything that was wrong with the old, broken way of doing things.
But then reality hit, and it hit hard. The practical efficiency of auction markets is often undermined by government interference and manipulation. So yeah, the system designed to be totally hands-off and fair, turns out people couldn't keep their hands off of it.
And it wasn't just one thing, it was a whole bunch of things that started to go wrong. Governments just couldn't help themselves. They kept interfering. Big, powerful bidders figured out how to game the system. On top of that, the country's other economic policies were a mess, so the auctions had no real support. The rules were constantly changing, the supply of dollars was unpredictable, and the biggest failure of all, they usually didn't even get rid of that black market they were designed to replace.
Okay, so after all that, what's the lesson here? What did we actually learn from this massive experiment that countries all over the world tried out?
Well, the takeaways are pretty clear and kind of sobering. First off, a market isn't some magic wand you can just wave. It only works if you have solid, consistent economic policies behind it. We also learned that these auctions, they just weren't sustainable. A lot of countries ended up ditching them. And like we said, they pretty much never got rid of the black market. And here's the real kicker. In some cases, they actually made things worse by preventing a real organic market from developing between banks.
And all of this leaves us with one big final question to chew on. Can you actually design a perfect market from the top down? Or is the real world, with all its politics and human quirks, always going to find a way to mess up even the most brilliant plans? It's a tough one. Anyway, that's something to think about.